All right, so I've got Strider here with me. I have not introduced Strider to the e-collar yet. So I've got my e-collar box paired up. You can hear it right there. And I'm gonna start working on just all the basics with him by layering the leash and the e-collar together so that he can contextualize this information. So it's gonna give you a really great idea of, one, how I train him on the e-collar. That's good information, but also, you know, when I release the e-collar, what I'm looking for in terms of the dog's state of mind, how I fluctuate my numbers based on their response to the e-collar, and all that good stuff. Let's go. So I'm going to layer my e-collar over all my commands, and the leash turns on at the same time. So there's 3 layers of information: my voice, my leash, and my e-collar. And it's pretty comical right now because this is the most he's stayed in a heel with me since he's been here. So kind of funny how that works out, because usually he shoots out a whole bunch and then I can use the e-collar to start doing a lot of layering with all my information, but right now he's apparently not in the mood. What's going on, huh? What's the deal? When your dogs go home, you won't have to add the leash anymore. He'll be e-collar trained. So, you know how you guys like to do this a lot with your leash. And I like it because once they're e-collar trained, you're gonna find that the leash is the anchor and the e-collar is the steering wheel. The e-collar is the form of information that gets them to be responding to all these commands, and the leash is just because well, we have to have leashes on our dogs. It's the law. I think maybe you could go out so I can start training you a little bit? Huh? Think you could be naughty? You're a good boy. E-collar timing. When I said sit, I really want to hold it longer, but I felt like the e-collar was a little too high, so I turned it off, and by the time I adjusted it, he went into a sit. He's on a 2 right now on the e-collar. Very low. Both your dogs are very sensitive. Good. Good. That's key, right? So I don't want to just tap and then the dog really doesn't learn anything, because the e-collar, he might feel the touch, but it's not anything necessarily that makes sense to the dog at the time. So what makes more sense to the dog is that touch is pairing, the pressure is pairing the same as the leash would pair, or I'm sorry, the leash pressure that we normally would use to get the dog to respond is paired with the e-collar, so the timing of the on-off is the same. So it makes more sense to them that it would turn off at the same time that the leash would normally turn off. So if I say sit with the e-collar, it's not about just a tap. It's about continuing to apply e-collar pressure until I actually start to see that they sit. And if you think about it, that's what the leash does too. So I just hold it. I'm not letting go until I get it. Good. Let's go. So the release comes when I get a commitment. So the same thing would be said with the e-collar, where I say sit, and it doesn't turn off until I get that commitment. Well, what you're hearing in the e-collar with the e-collar speaker box is a form of cadence e-collar work. I do holding and I do cadence style. Good job. So either one is repetitive until the dog commits. So even if it's a cadence where I go beep, 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 it's intermittent. It might be intermittent touch, but it's not going to turn off until the dog commits. So I like to do both, and I love both. Most of my clients do better with the hold because it's less confusing. I like to mix it up for the dog, and cadence is really common with sensitive dogs because sometimes they're so sensitive it can be too much pressure. So sometimes that on-off, 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 on-off still applies the necessary pressure to communicate with the dog without maybe becoming too high on the e-collar for them. So we're only on a 2 with him, but he is really sensitive. What you're probably hearing in the video is a combination of short bursts of speaker, which is like short bursts of e-collar, and then longer bursts. And that is determined by his responsiveness. So if I get, let's go, an immediate response, I'm going to turn it off. If I get a delayed response, I'm going to hold it on until I get the commitment. If I don't get the commitment and I've been holding the e-collar for several seconds, then I'm going to start actually going up on my e-collar, which right now with him I don't need to. But at the same time, there's really nothing very stimulating going on. This is pretty basic work right now. There's no real trigger. So dogs are oftentimes much higher than their working number once an issue presents itself. So if I were to see something that were normally to make him react, which I haven't seen reactivity out of him yet, but if he goes home and starts to exhibit leash reactivity, I will be holding the button down and I might have to simultaneously go up on the remote collar until I find a number that communicates well enough with him to listen. So You have a boost button, which is a +5. That could be your go-to. But you might have to go up even higher than that, depending on the dog's level of intensity. So it's really about finding the number that gets them to respond, but not correct them to the point where now we're just lighting our dogs up. Let's go, instead of communicating with them. Let's go. Good. Good job, buddy. So Ripple, and the video I made of you yesterday with the walk-by, went up to 35 on the e-collar at one point because he was so intense about blue. Good. And the video, he never once yelped or even flinched. So the 35 was the number, let's go, that was high enough to continue to communicate with him, but not correct him. And I was able to get him out of the situation fairly quickly because the number was set to the right number. And this is what this will take. Why are you doing that? Sit. Thank you. Thank you. You're going to find with your dogs that your numbers are going to fluctuate a little bit. And that's going to be the hardest part, is especially in the heat of the moment, finding that number, which I'm going to help you through. But knowing that you're not e-collar experts and you're just learning. Sit. He doesn't want to stay on this side for some reason, just through here. Let's go. Let's go. Maybe it's the speaker box. Let's go. Here. Definitely the speaker box. He's scared of the speaker box. Mildly, but still, he doesn't want to walk. He doesn't want to be close to it. Sit. Anyway, I'll have to help you through finding the number and stuff, but giving yourself a little bit of slack when your dogs come home, because you're going to have a lot of adjustment period and learning the e-collar, how to use it, your timing, and then also being fluid on the dial so that you're finding a really good number that's communicating with them, and not just staying on a 3 all the time. When your dogs see a trigger, they're not going to be as low as a 3. So understanding that part of the e-collar is definitely challenging, but it's something that we all need to understand if we want to use these tools appropriately. I'm going to wrap this session up. I know we haven't done much, but I spent some time with Strider. Come here. Come on. Come on. Sit. Good. You're really scared of that, aren't you? He's much more affectionate towards me than Ripple. Ripple still doesn't really want me to pet him, but Strider likes it. Anyway, we worked for about 8 minutes before I started this video, getting him adjusted to the collar and fitted and finding the number and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and call it a session. I like to keep my sessions short and sweet. And hopefully this was informational enough for you to gain some insight into my e-collar work.